Curt Lawson, the Deputy Chief for the West Bloomfield Police Department. You're looking very mustachy.
Great.
You're giving Steve Kaplan some competition there with that mustache, Curt.
Oh, perfect. Well, as you guys know, that every November we allow our officers to grow beards for charity. This year we have 5 different charities that we're going to give right around $3,000 to. I can tell you the Chief of Police does not like the beard look, but it's for a good cause, and he's doing it for charity, so it's all good.
I'm with you. I think it should be extended into December so you guys can have a competition for Santa Claus.
Well, we're looking at about having a competition with Bloomfield Township. We had it all set up, but then we kind of backed out. We weren't sure if we were going to do beards or not, and then at the last minute we decided, all right, let's go forward with it. So maybe next year we'll have a big competition, and you guys can cover that. It'll be fun.
So what are some of the charities that you guys are going to be helping out for this?
Well, they're local charities. There's not one that's more important than another, but My Cops is one of them. It's an organization that supports families of fallen officers. Of course, we have Haven and Care House. They deal with domestic violence. They deal with sexual abuse. And then we partner with West Bloomfield School District on Blessings in a Backpack to help needy kids and needy families. And then the final organization is the Alanis Foundation, which gives out free flu shots to our community. So great organizations, and we're glad here that the police department could help them out.
So I will say, I'm wondering what the conversation is with your wives when you're doing this, because some women love it, some don't. My husband always tries to grow one when he goes on vacation for like a week or so. And by the end, I'm like, no.
So I can tell you my wife likes it. My kids say I look like an old man. So it's split in half there a little bit.
Put that aside. But you know what, though? It's a fun event that you and other police departments across the country do for this. I know Keiko Harbor Police Department is doing it right now as well. And they are also highlighting local charities that the individual police officers pick to support. So it's a great event, and so many people are benefiting on the back half of it. So thank you to you and all of your teammates for putting the razor down for the month of November.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, going on to police business, can we talk about the latest order from the state health department? When you guys see those orders come down, it was a Sunday night rare press conference from the governor. Do you get a heads up, and really does it impact what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, first of all, I love seeing Grace. She's a great person. She's certainly passionate about a lot of things. And I don't think she's a big fan of the Michigan Department of Health order, but our hearts certainly go out to the businesses like hers. It's a tough time. It's unfortunate that they have to close down the indoor dining. There's so many businesses out there that I've seen here in West Bloomfield, the Clarkson area, where these businesses do what they're supposed to do. They do a common sense approach. They're keeping that spacing. They're putting plastic up to keep people separate. And those are the businesses that I give a thumbs up to. But then there's other businesses that they have 100% capacity. There's no spacing between individuals. They're not enforcing the mask order. So those are the businesses I think that really, unfortunately, ruin it for everybody.
With that, have you and your officers had any complaints where you've had to actually go out and write a citation? There was the donut shop in Dearborn this week that really kind of made national news because they were issued a citation because someone was actually sitting down in their restaurant, I think having a cup of coffee or something of that nature. Have you had to write any citations for these businesses?
We have written no citations here in West Bloomfield from the beginning of 2020, or at least from March. But we do go out and educate. So from time to time, we'll get a complaint. We had some issues at the Powerhouse Gym here in West Bloomfield. And, we had to go out there and educate the management and ownership about, hey, listen, we're all in this together. Let's get some masks on. Let's keep that social distancing. And we've had a lot of compliance. Anytime we've gone out and talked to management of a facility, really no problems at all. Everyone's been really easy to work with as far as the police department.
That has been one of the things that's come out of these orders, enforcement. Who enforces, who doesn't? Does that kind of put you and your officers in an awkward position?
It does a little bit, and I can say that our attorney bills are quite high because we run everything through our township attorneys first, and then we come up with a game plan on how we're going to react. But thankfully, we haven't had to make the decision about, are we writing a citation? If we are writing a citation, are we writing it under a executive order or a health department order? Who's doing the enforcement? These are a lot of questions and a lot of confusion with a lot of police departments around the state. So we're just doing the best we can to navigate the choppy waters, and so far so good, fingers crossed.
Curt Lawson with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast. He's the Deputy Chief for the West Bloomfield Police Department. And you said that perfectly. I think the confusion part that has come with this and these orders. And we've kind of talked about it before. You would think this is a state agency. There would be some very direct clarification at the beginning when they put these orders out, because I think some of the issues come in not just with police departments, but restaurant owners, but also individuals, private individuals. There seems to be a lot of confusion around some of these orders, which I would imagine makes your job that much harder.
It is. And like I said, it's all about education. And the thing that we've talked about so many times on this show, I know Chief Flynn has talked about it numerous times, is what we're asking our community to do is please wear your face masks when you're out in public. Try to keep that distance, wash your hands. That's the only thing that we're really telling you. That's what we need to worry about. Those are the things that you need to do so we can lessen this second spike that we're seeing. I just talked to Henry Ford Hospital yesterday. They're seeing uptick in cases, but they're prepared for what's coming. But they're just begging the community, please wear those face masks. We all have to be very, very careful over Thanksgiving. Everyone wants to get together, but we need to be disciplined. This is hard, but if there's someone in your family that has autoimmune disease, they're older, you have to weigh whether it's worth getting together on Thanksgiving or just waiting a few more months until we can see some of these vaccines be available to the general public. And we're certainly asking people to, at least if you're going to get your families together, let's limit it to less than 10 people if you can.
You know, I've been surprised because I know we've been talking a lot about educating the public, people wearing their mask, washing their hands. Every time I go out, because I live in this community, so Kegel, Sylvan Lake, Bloomfield Hills, West Bloomfield, those are, my areas and my shopping areas. And for the most part, I've rarely seen anyone out without a mask. So it seems surprising that you're seeing this uptick in cases when publicly anyway, it appears as people are following the rules and the regulations. From a police standpoint, are you seeing the same thing when you're out? Because you're out so much more than I am.
I do get out a lot, that's for sure. But I'm always wearing my mask. But I think what's going on is that families have friends come over, other couples come over, they have kids, their friends come over in these small groups. And I think that's where we're seeing that contamination, quite frankly.
Curt Lawson here on the Oakland County MegaCast. And Curt, from a West Bloomfield Police Department standpoint, what else do you guys have going on right now? I know you guys recently started a new peer support team. What exactly is that?
Well, we're super excited about it. We look at the model of 21st century policing. It was done during the Obama administration. It's when he brought all these experts together and they came up with 6 pillars that law enforcement agencies should take a look at to see where they stand as far as whether you're an excellent agency, whether you're an average agency, or whether you need some improvement. And when we looked at that, we definitely were all about the first 5 pillars, about community support, community outreach, having great policies and procedures, our training, everything was great. But one of the things that we noticed is that we didn't do a great job with the officer wellness, specifically making sure that our officers had the mental health support they needed. In law enforcement, you know this, Ronnie, is that we're supposed to be these tough people, these men and women, and we don't need to ask for help. So we're really trying to reduce that stigma. And we put together this peer support team. They're individuals from within our police department who are backed up by a local psychologist that Melanie Schwartz. They're specially trained to provide guidance and support for our officers that have gone through, whether they're having a tough time at home or where they've seen a scene here while they're working that they need to talk to someone about, or if we have a major incident that we need to debrief, this team is going to be there to help our officers. And we really think this is going to make us a stronger organization. And we're going to knock down that stigma so people can ask for help when they need it.
And Curt, can we talk a little bit about that? Because when we're talking about mental health and law enforcement officers, there's also been an issue of typically those officers feel like they can't go to a supervisor, they can't seek that outside support because it will go on their record. And once it's on the record, that could damage and hurt their career opportunities. And also, I mean, in some cases too, we got to remember while there are HIPAA rules and regulations, there are also issues about owning a gun when you have mental health issues. So how do you balance that conversation?
Well, really the most important thing when we put this team together was the understanding that confidentiality was the most important thing. That when officers came to our team to talk about personal matters or issues that they were having, as long as they weren't violating laws or violating department policy, all of that is kept confidential. Nothing is written down. The sole purpose of this team is to guide and support them, to help them. And the reason we think that this team is going to be so effective is that they understand the police culture, they understand our work environment, and they understand the challenges of law enforcement. Now, you wouldn't think here in West Bloomfield that we see a lot of things, but I assure you, we actually do. And there's been several cases here where our officers have had a really rough time with certain situations, and we just have not done a great job in helping them. So as we move forward, we're so excited about this program. It's going to help our young people out. We have a very, very young department, and this is going to be a great tool for our toolbox as we move forward.
I love that you guys are doing this because I think it's also a conversation that's not being talked about enough, because suicide amongst law enforcement as well as first responders, we're talking firefighters and EMTs as well, because what you guys see every day can be traumatic, and people don't want to talk about that, and they try to hide those feelings. So I think it's a great program and what you're doing, because as you mentioned, especially with the young officers coming in, because I do feel like it's a different generation, right? This generation coming in, they're different than how we grew up.
They're definitely different. But you know what's great about this generation is that they are more open to seeking help. How they differ from other generations. Like, when I started, like, I couldn't get enough overtime. We all were like, let's make money. Now they don't. They want their own personal time. They don't want to come and work overtime, which is fine. It's a different culture. But what I love to see is they don't mind asking for help. They do an absolutely great job. They like to know why they're asked to do things. And in the past, that was never an issue. But I have no issue with that. Let's explain why we're asking you to do this. What does it mean for you? What does it mean for the organization? What does it mean for us as we move forward? So I think it's a great thing.
What do you think the future of policing holds in America? While riots and protests have died down, since the election has been held, and it does appear as if Biden is going to be the president-elect, how do you think the election is going to impact policing over the next 4 years?
I'm not overly concerned about how the election is going to impact law enforcement. I think that, I could talk about this subject for 2 hours straight, but I really think that Biden in his past, in the federal government as a senator, he has been supportive of law enforcement. You look at the COPS grant that's provided tens of millions of dollars to training law enforcement. He was one of the architects for that. So I believe that he is going to be supportive of law enforcement, but he is expecting positive changes from law enforcement. And that's where we need our police leaders to step up. We need our officers to have an open mind Really, I talked about this. I did a presentation at the Optimist Club just last week. We need to have our officers take a look at the past behavior of law enforcement, because it's not been a great relationship with minority communities all the way back into the 1800s. So we need to understand our past. We need to learn from it. We need to continue to listen to people that have concerns about policing, and we need to make adjustments. And hopefully as we move forward, we can develop better relationships with the communities that we serve.
And Curt, like, I get where you're coming from too, but that is where you hope to be. But there is a reality in so many police departments, not necessarily West Bloomfield, but there is a reality in so many of these police departments and law enforcement agencies on the federal side as well, where you have some of these old school people who believe a certain way. And when you speak out against that, it's not being entertained as let us voice our opinions so we can be better. People feel like they can't say anything, or we can't, or you can't voice your opinion. So to the young police officers that may find them in those situations, what is your advice to them? Because I will say the one thing that cold blue silence, I do think is going away.
I do as well. I think that our younger people, our men and women, they are very comfortable dealing with minorities, dealing with people that are different from them. Certainly a lot different than when I started, quite honestly. But I think education plays a huge role in allowing, especially our leaders, to get a different view. When I went to, I got my master's degree from Eastern Michigan University, and I sat in a seminar, and I think I was the only white person there, and I was certainly the only police officer there. And they went around the room, they found out I was a police officer, and I could not believe none of them liked law enforcement. And that was my first exposure. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're great. We're there for the community. And they're telling me these horror stories. And that was the first time that kind of there was an awakening for me about, boy, we have a lot of work to do in law enforcement. And that's why I really believe to get our future leaders, we need them educated. At the very least, a bachelor's degree and a master's degree is what I would prefer. It's going to open them up to a whole bunch of different ideas. They're going to meet different people. We've got to make some changes in law enforcement, and the leaders, they got to step up. Yeah,
and I think a lot of those changes begin with diversifying the workforce. You need people of different experiences and different backgrounds to come together to continue that conversation. It's funny that you had that experience when you said you were a law enforcement, because imagine me, a media person, going into a law enforcement setting. I had the same experience. I didn't realize law enforcement hated media to the level.
I'm in the minority. Right?
You are definitely in the minority. At one point in time, I went to a conference in Grand Rapids with ATF, and I was shrinking. I felt like I was going to be tarred and feathered before I left there. So, but again, it's about opening up and having those conversations. And with that, before we let you go quickly, I would imagine West Bloomfield Police Department is hiring.
So we are hiring, and you talked about recruiting minorities, recruiting women. I mean, that's what we've been trying to do for years. We have a recruitment team that goes out, but it has been much more difficult over the past year with all the negativity kind of shining upon law enforcement. Some of it deserved, some of it not deserved. When I started in 1994, there was 3 positions available. There was 350 people that took that test. We have 3 positions available in 2021, and we have 20 applicants. And we're only going to take the top 1%. So if we don't get the people that we want, if they're not the best, we're just going to leave those positions open at this time. But it's been an uphill battle, not just with West Bloomfield, but across the country. And just to kind of put it in perspective, I mean, we're one of the highest paid departments, give the best benefits. We still have pensions, and we can't attract as many people as we really should be attracting to this profession. So it's scary times.
Yeah, and hopefully we can continue the conversation publicly to improve the relationship between the community as well as the police departments, because as you're saying, it has a direct impact on the people that are willing to go into the industry, because we need a representation from the communities in which we serve for us all to be better because
Absolutely.
of it.
And if we're not hiring the best people now, if departments are just hiring what they can get to fill the seats, that's going to affect that community for the next 15 to 20 years. And it's not going to be a positive thing. It's going to be a negative. And it's not going to be good for the profession as a whole. So we need to figure this out, and we need to figure it out quickly.
Yeah, because I had someone say to me once, well, why don't you lessen your standards? Well, if you do that, especially in today's society where everyone has a camera and you're not going to like the results. So
absolutely, we were asking our officers to do so much more these days. Deal with individuals with mental health. 1 in 10 calls that we go on involve someone who has mental health issues. Dealing with the homeless. There are just so many things that law enforcement deals with today that they didn't even deal with 15, 20 years ago. But we certainly can't lessen our standards of training and education. We need to increase those. And so we talk about defunding the police. And I understand they want to take a portion of money and push it towards community programs. And I think that's very important. But I don't think they should take that money from law enforcement. They should find a different pot of money. I know it's easy to say, but already law enforcement is struggling with training, education, getting their people the right equipment. And it's just so very important that we don't take a step backwards with that. We need to keep moving forward.
Well, Curt, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. And we want to wish you and all of the members over at the West Bloomfield Police Department a very happy Thanksgiving. Are you cooking dinner yourself?
No. So I loved what Grace said earlier about supporting your local restaurants. So we're having ours catered in. It's just my immediate family. We're keeping the mother and father-in-law and my mom at home and away from us. It's a difficult decision. It's a hard decision, but we thought that was right for us, and so that's the direction we're going to go.
Well, that's the safe way to go as well, because I have a feeling that I'll be running out Thanksgiving Day looking for a place to get some dinner other than the Chinese restaurant. So thank you for being with us, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family as well.
And you as well, and don't get too depressed watching the Lions Thursday. Just keep your spirits up.